There are only murderers in this room. Open your eyes. This is the life we chose, the life we lead. And there is only one guarantee. None of us will see heaven. Put a gun to his head and pull the trigger.
Hey guys, Clawland here, and welcome to another episode of Left Hand Reviews. And today we're finally going to get to take a look at a great game called Mob Ties. Mob Ties was a 2011 Kickstarter release and was designed by Devin Granger, Nathan Isaac, John Kleinschmidt, Diego Rich, and Colin Smith. It plays in about 90 to 120 minutes with 3 to 6 players. Now in Mob Ties, each player is going to represent a group of mobsters vying for control of a small city. The primary mechanics of this game are going to be negotiation, backstabbing, and revenge, with a little bit of area control and voting thrown in there for good measure. I would kind of place the type of game that this is with games like Diplomacy, Battlestar Galactica, The Resistance, because this is a very psychological game as opposed to having shiny special mechanics and all sorts of math and things like that. This is very cerebral, and it's definitely a game that you're going to want to play with a certain group of people, most likely a good group of close friends. Now, while you are also playing the game as a group of mobsters, you're going to be fighting against all the other mobsters trying to take control of that city, but at the same time, you're going to have to worry about the feds, which are constantly encroaching on your places of dirty business. So let's take a look at what comes in the box, and then I'll show you how it plays. Now this is the official release of Mob Ties. I know there's some other great reviews out there from Lance Undead Viking and James Castelli and Castelli Reviews, who did some reviews on the Kickstarter pre-production versions. But this is the actual release version. And you can see it comes in an interesting, kind of oddly sized square box that is actually rather on the thick side as well. Some great artwork on the front. And we'll open it up, and the first thing that you'll see is the map board, which I'll unfold in a couple minutes, but it's your standard quad fold board. We also have 6 player aid cards for the up to 6 different players, and they're very well done. And they have plenty of information on the front and back, which is always nice. We have the core rule book here, which again is about 11 or 12 pages, full color, lots of pictures. Very well done. There was a couple things in here that left me leaving some questions, but there's some great support on the BGG forums. So if you have any questions, just feel free to look there. But overall, very well written rulebook. Now we also have the alternate and advanced rulebook here, where you can add in some special rules. You can kind of pick and choose what things you might want. It also goes through a card manifest, which is nice as well. Now, it looks like everything kind of spilled all over the place while I was holding it. But here you can see the money. Money is king in this game. Basically, the person that ends the game with the most money wins. And this is a paper money, so I know a lot of you might scoff at that. And it's a relatively thin paper. It feels kind of just like your standard 90-pound weight printer paper. So I think a lot of people may want to swap that out for poker chips. Because this paper money, I could see after just a few games, it could start coming apart on you. Then here we have all of the Fed cards. And the back here you can see there's just all sorts of great artwork on these cards. And these are the cards that are going to deploy the Feds throughout the game as they're trying to capture our mob bosses. You have a bunch of stands here for the mobster cards, which are right here. You can see them in all the various colors, and they're going to get put in those stands so you can stand them up and move them around. Here you have all your various tokens. Your Fed tokens are the ones with the sheriff star on them, and then you have your tokens with the money amount, and then on the back you have your all bets are off or Honor Among Thieves token, which I'll explain. And here you have a nice fat stack of the favor cards. These You're going to start the game with a couple, and you also have the opportunity to draw more throughout the game or purchase more. And these are going to do all sorts of special things for you, from allowing attacks against other players, defense against other players, various specialty cards, as well as having defense against the feds that are going to come out. Now, it's important to note that the artwork on these is very nice. It's kind of in an almost anime style artwork, and the pictures themselves can tend to be definitely on the graphic side. So this is definitely a game that I would be reserved to play with younger audiences, or people that you're not sure if they are going to be able to handle or appreciate this type of artwork. It's definitely a little on the graphic side. I would call it kind of like a rated R movie. So if you want to watch a rated R movie with someone, you may want to, consider playing this game with them. So let's set up a game, and then I'll show you how it plays. So here we see the setup of a typical 4-player game of Mob Ties. We have the game board here in the center, with each of the main locations here having a racket value, which I'll explain a little bit later. It's kind of in the look of a police board, where they have all their different areas under surveillance, and we have a map in the background. There's also a couple areas of note on the board. We have the prison here, which you never want to go to, and the morgue, which again is even worse. And then we have the airfield up here, which is going to be used in some variants and expansions, so not in the base game. And we have the heat meter here as well, which is going to rise, and which is going to bring more heat on our mobsters and thus draw more feds. You can also see I have 4 player aids out. Each player is going to start with 25,000 in money. They're going to have all their little mobster cards here. And then we also have the bank down here on the left, which is going to be controlled by one player, who's going to be known as the bookie, because they're the only ones allowed to handle the cash. We have our Fed tokens here, which are going to signify the areas on the board that the Feds are surrounding. And we have this neat little token here. Now what this is when the game starts, you're going to have to decide if you're going to play Honor Among Thieves or All Bets Are Off. And what that means is this game, like I said, is going to have a lot of negotiation, and so you need to decide if there's any consideration exchanged during negotiation. Say you give someone money for a promise. If you're playing Honor Among Thieves, they have to honor that promise. If you are playing All Bets Are Off, then of course all bets are off. So the first thing I wanted to show you was some of the favor cards here and the different types. So the first one here, we have an attack card, and you can see this is an attack level 4, and we have a great picture there, Fed to the Pigs, and some flavor text there at the bottom. So this is going to be used as a level 4 attack against other mobsters. Here's a level 1 attack, Last Call. Now we also have defensive cards, which are going to be shown with the blue shield symbol. You can see that this one has a value of 3, so it provides a 3 defense. And attacking is very simple. If somebody plays an attack card against you, you have the opportunity to defend against it. And if the defense value is higher than the attack, then nothing happens. If the attack succeeds, then you are killed and put into the morgue. We have various specialty cards here, which are signified with a briefcase symbol. This happens to be one that says steal 1 favor card randomly from a target player. Target player then suffers a level 2 attack. Here's one that doesn't have an attack, called Tony Goldstein, Esquire. And it says this card may only be played during the bail phase. Remove one of your pinched mobsters from prison and place him on the streets. That's pretty good. Then we have a couple cards here, examples of the weapons cards, and they have this yellow gun symbol in the corner, and these are used against the feds. So as the feds are starting to surround areas, that's bad, so you can play one of these weapons cards that says remove 4 feds from target location. Or this particular one says remove all feds from target location. I could just imagine this scene going on in the background. So all players are actually going to start with a certain number of favor cards. And in a 4-player game, each player is going to start with 6 favor cards. So now let's look at the different mobsters. First one we have here is the driver. And what you see on there is their name, and that number is not an attack value, but that's actually their respect value. And that's going to matter when they are in the various areas vying for the racket value. We have the associate here, which is also a 1, respect. We have a made man with a respect of 2. The hitman with a respect of 2. And finally, the capo, who holds a respect of 3. And in addition to have a higher respect, at the end of the game, whoever has the most money is going to win. And in addition to money that you've collected throughout the game, you're going to cash in all your mobsters that are still alive and not in prison, and each one of those is going to be worth a certain value. And of course, the ones that have a higher respect value are worth more money. So those are the ones you want to hold on to as much as possible. So at the start of the game, you're going to pick a start player, and then one at a time, each player is going to place one of their mobsters on one of the locations on the board. So let's say red started, and they're going to place one in the docks, and then yellow will go, and they'll place one at Kitty's, and then purple will go, and they're going to place one in the docks. And you're going to just seed the board like this until players have placed all of their mobsters. Now, there's another location on the board here called the streets, which is right here in the center. During the start of the game, you can't place anyone on the streets, but throughout the game, you can move people onto the streets, and you do that for certain reasons. Now, the game actually comes with these plastic stands here to stand these little cards up and move them around. And be careful when you're putting them in the stands, because the stands are new, and you're going to want to put some pressure, but this cardboard is relatively thin, so it's easy to bend these in half and crease them. So just be careful when you're doing that. But for the sake of this review, I'm going to leave them flat so it's easier to see on camera. I think the best way to go over the game is just to dive right in. So that's what we're going to do. So I've seated the board with all the mobsters here to simulate the start of the game. And the very first phase of the game is going to be the election phase. And that's when we're going to elect a new Don here at the Don's Mansion. So what you're going to do is see who wins the Show of Respect. And the Show of Respect is one of the core components of this game. So what you're going to do is you're going to add up the respect value of each color mobster. And you can see that orange placed 2 mobsters in the Don's Mansion for a total of 4 respect. And let's say purple had put his capo there. Purple's capo is worth 3 respect. So in this case, the orange player is going to win the Don's election, and they get their little Don's ring, and the rules state that you're supposed to wear the ring and flaunt it, and you can even make the other players kiss your ring. Now that they have won the Don's election, they're going to grab 2 of the favor cards off the top of the deck, look at them, and choose one to keep, and the other one's going to get placed on the bottom of the favor deck. And they're going to hold on to that card, and they're going to be able to use it whenever the favorite card says so. So it's just a way that they get more cards. Now, it's really important to be the Don, because not only are you able to grab a new favor card, which tend to be very expensive in the game because you can purchase them yourself, but they cost $25,000 each. So in addition to getting those favor cards, the Don also breaks all ties that happen on the game board. So if any areas there's a show of respect where they're tied and the players can't come to an agreement, then the Don is going to decide who is going to win that show of respect, and they may demand a little bit of compensation in return. So you got to be careful. The Don is a very powerful role. So the next phase of the game is the business phase. And this is where a show of respect is going to occur in each one of the areas on the board where you see a racket value. And the show of respect is going to work the same way. So let's go to Little Italy here, and you can see that orange has a show of respect of 2, and we can see that purple has a show of respect of 1. So orange is going to win this show of respect, and they're going to win the racket value of $18,000. So the bookie is going to pay them $18,000, and they add that to their purse. Now, let's look at the next area here, the meat locker. Now you can see purple has a value of 3, orange 2, and red 2. So on the surface, it's going to look like purple's going to win that racket value. But Orange and Red may want to form some sort of temporary alliance. Orange might say, hey, if you join with me, Red, so we have a total of 4 and win the show of respect, I'll give you half of my show of respect, or half of the racket value. I'll give you 6,000 if you join with me. And Purple, on the other hand, is going to say, no, don't do that. Red, you join with me, and I'll give you half of it, and I'll give you a favor card as well. So there's all sorts of crazy negotiation and backstabbing that you can do in this game. That's what makes it so much fun. That is really how you have fun with this game. So you're going to go through each of the areas through that negotiation and shows of respect and settle out all the criminal enterprises that are happening and pay out the money. Now in the diner, you can see there is, in the booth back here, a police officer, a crooked cop. Now the person that wins the show of respect here at the diner has the option of either taking the racket value, which in this case is relatively small, 6,000, or they can forego that and bribe that crooked cop. And that allows them to see the next cards that are coming up in the Fed deck. So they can see where the Feds are going to start invading and surrounding next. So that may be really important, especially later in the game. As the heat meter rises, more and more Fed cards are going to come out. 1 card at a time, 2 cards at a time, and 3 cards at a time. So it may be really important to bribe that cop down here and see those Fed cards coming up. So after the business phase comes the movement phase, and each mobster, or each player rather, is able to move 1 mobster from 1 location to another location. 1 and only 1. So Purple may move his guy from here to here, and Red may move up to the Don's mansion because he's going to want to try to be the Don in the next Don election phase, and so on and so forth. You can also move characters into the street. Now it's important to note that there can only be 5 characters in each location. So if there's already 5, you can't move a 6th in there. So after movement is the Feds phase. And we're going to draw 1 Fed card for each level of the heat meter. So right now the heat meter at the start of the game is going to be at level 1, so we're going to draw 1 Fed card. And the Fed, this is a bad example, but this is called Turn the Tables. And this is just going to reverse the order of play, so not so bad. But let's say we drew a different card. Here we go, Police Lineup. Add 1 Fed to Little Italy. So if that was the card we had drawn, we're going to take 1 Fed marker and add it here to Little Italy. Now at the end of the Feds phase, you're going to see if there's any areas that are surrounded by Feds. And that is any area that has 4 or more Fed markers. In an area that is surrounded, you're going to have another show of respect. And remember, this is occurring after the movement phase. So the person that wins the show of respect gets to pick another mobster in that area that's going to get pinched and sent off to the prison. So if, let's say, there were 4 Fed tokens here a little bit later in the game, Purple's going to win the show of respect, and they're going to kick off Orange here to the prison. And again, remember all that negotiation, because maybe Red's up here as well, and Red's going to say, hey, Orange, you join with me, okay? I will not kill you in the next round because I have an attack card that I'm going to play in this upcoming action phase. So if you don't join with me in this show of respect to pinch one of Purple, then I'm going to play an attack card and kill you the next round. So they might say, okay, I'll join with you, and they pinch Purple, and Purple picks obviously his lowest guy to get pinched and go into prison. And again, that's kind of an example of another way that this game works. So you can use that negotiation to say, I'll split the racket value like we did earlier in that business phase. But you can also threaten people, threaten killing them with cards. You can never show them the favorite cards that you collect or have in your hand. But you can threaten them and say you have certain cards that you may or may not actually have. And that's where a lot of threatening comes in, which is pretty exciting. The next phase is going to be the action card phase, and that's going to go 1 player at a time, and each player only gets 1 turn in the action phase. And each player is allowed to play as many action cards as they want that they have in their hand. And it's going to start with the Don and move clockwise around the board. Now, players can play these action cards as many as they want, like I stated. The trick is if they are playing, say, attack cards, they can only play attack cards against other players that share locations with them. There's also a special action that the driver can take during the action phase, and the driver can move from a location to the streets or from the streets to another location. And they can actually take other players with them, or other mobsters with them. So the driver could take the hitman here with him to the streets, or if they're already in the streets together, could take them to another location. So that's just another interesting action. It's also of note that there's a first blood bonus rule, meaning the first person to kill another mobster receives a cash bonus of $25,000, and that's only valid in the first round of play. So things are going to get bloody on this board really fast, really quickly. The sixth phase of Mob Ties is bail, and that's when you are able to bail your mobsters, your pinch mobsters, out of jail. And you may actually have a card like that Esquire card I showed you earlier that allows you to bail them out for free. Otherwise, you must pay to bail them out, and you have to pay their value. In other words, it's $25,000 times their respect value. So again, you can see that can get very expensive to get them out of prison. And finally, the seventh phase of each game round is called the heat phase, and that's when you're going to see if we adjust the heat meter. So to determine if the heat meter moves up, you're going to look at all the mobsters that have been sent to prison or have been killed off. And if that number equals the number of players, then the heat meter is going to rise to the next level. So this is the end of the round. We're in the heat phase, and we see, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, there are 5 players, 5 mobsters that are either killed or in prison. So this is going to jump up to the next level. The 2x means that we're going to be drawing 2 Fed cards at a time during the Fed phase instead of just 1. We now also remove mobsters from the game that are in the prison and in the morgue, starting with, or equal to the number of players, and we start there at the prison. So again, the heat meter rose, now we remove 4 of these from the game, starting with the prison. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And it doesn't really matter which ones you remove here from the morgue, because they're dead and they're never coming back. Now the reason it's important that you remove from the prison first is because, remember, you can bail these guys out during the bail phase, but during the heat phase, if the heat rises and you have to remove them from the game and remove them starting with the prison, now they've been shipped off to a federal penitentiary and they're no longer available to be bailed out. So that really is all there is to it, to the 7 phases. The rules are very straightforward, and you're just going to keep going around and around until you get to the 3rd level. And when you're at the 3rd level, the next time that heat meter would rise, the game ends, and each of the players finishes out their turn. Then what you're going to do is everyone is going to count up all their money, cash in all their remaining mobsters for their monetary value, and whoever has the most money wins. So what do you think of Mob Ties? Well, I actually want to read the last paragraph in the manual on page 12 called The Last Word, because I think that really sums up this game really well. And it says, Mob Ties is intended to be a thematic game of strategy whose primary mechanic is negotiation. Mob Ties is designed to force players into direct conflict with one another, while at the same time providing players with opportunities to use conflict to their advantage by forging alliances, making deals, and positioning themselves to win the game. We encourage players to play upon the thematic qualities of this game, which we hope are many. I really think that sums this game up really well. This is an extremely thematic game. It's an extremely psychological game with a lot of intimidation, with a lot of negotiation, backstabbing, wheeling and dealing, and that's really the way this is meant to be played. Now that, in combination with the rather graphic artwork and theme of the game, just goes to show you that this needs to be played with a very select group of people. I would not play this with most of the people in my gaming group. I'd only play it with my close friends, because we have a nice close-knit group, and I think this game fits in well with them. I don't think it would work well with people that you don't know so well, or people that you might just play your casual Euro games with. So you need to keep that in mind if you're looking to pick up a copy of Mob Ties. Now another nice thing about this is this alternate rules book, which I glossed over earlier, and this has a lot of great extra rules in it to keep the game exciting. There's some foot soldiers, that you could hire in one of the variants. There's the Sicilian. There's a variant where you can hire put contracts out on other players. Let me just open it up. Let's see. You have one called Turn Up the Heat. You have trading and exchanging cards, escape the city, undercover Fed, custom racket values. The Don sets the terms. I mean, there's all sorts of awesome little variants that you can add in this game. You can pick and choose which ones you want and customize the game to the way you like it best. And I think that is awesome. It keeps this game going. I think it stands really well on its own, but having those different variants makes it that much more fun. Now, a word on the components. They're not as good as a lot of the other mainstream games out there. The tiles here for the mobsters, albeit nice, are very thin. In the Kickstarter pre-production copies, I think they used poker chips or little discs. I think that would have been probably a little bit nicer. And it'd be nicer if the game board was a little bit bigger to accommodate that. But I understand this is their first published game, I believe, and they have to be more reasonable with the amount of money that they can spend. So that's just a minor gripe that I have. The cards are also, they're kind of this tall style, which is a little weird. I kind of prefer the regular standard playing card size or the standard Euro card size. But again, that's just me. The cards are on a nice, very thick stock, which is nice. They did come a little bit bent. I don't know if you can see that. I think maybe that was just from moisture or humidity during transport. Really not a big deal. And again, we have paper money. Really not a fan of paper money, but that doesn't hold Power Grid back. So you can easily just exchange that with poker chips, which I think would actually fit really well with the theme of this game anyway. The last thing is you have this silly little Don's ring. It doesn't really look like a Don's ring. It's like a little skull. I don't know. I want something shiny and blingy. There might have been a Kickstarter promo where you could get that, or maybe you can order something more blingy from them. Just go to Macy's or your local department store and pick up a silly little giant fake ruby emerald ring for $2 and you're good to go with that. So other than that, that's really everything negative I have to say about the game. Just the components are good. They're just not fabulous. And that's not really a big deal because this game does not rely on the components. It relies on the group of players that you play the game with. So Mob Ties. It is an excellent game if you're into negotiation and backstabbery and revenge and mobs, and it's really great. So if you like the theme of the game and you like the way it looked, I think you should definitely take a look at Mob Ties. It's just such a unique game compared to what else is out there. So Mob Ties. I definitely think it is worth giving it a shot, and I appreciate you watching Left Hand Reviews.